Glory to Jesus Christ. Good morning.
Με θυμών ο Θεός γνωτέθνη και ητάστε ότι με θυμών ο Θεός.
St. Paul, if you have read his letters, hopefully you all have read his letters at least once, as you can now plainly see today, we read that he had written to his spiritual son Timothy. St. Paul had become a spiritual father to many of the people. He went through all the lands at that time. Obviously, if you understand, no internet, no phone, none of those things were in existence. So he had to go to those places. He had to take boats, he had to take horses, he had to do whatever it took. And in certain times when he was in prison, he had to write letters to communicate with the men and the women that were out in the world. St. Paul, in his life, obviously living during the Roman occupation, was surrounded by the military. He saw Roman soldiers constantly. And if you understand how the Roman soldiers would guard, especially St. Paul, they would be with him almost 24 hours a day, sometimes chained to him in the same room. Imagine how many people that St. Paul ministered to while he was in prison. Those are the people that God wanted him to minister to. We have many soldiers that we celebrate now during our feast days, today being St. Demetrios, the name day for myself and for others to celebrate St. Demetrios, was also one of those soldiers. Not that Paul knew, but later on he became a part of the Christian army. We who are Christians, and you who have come into this place of St. Nectarios, and if any of you have sat here and listened to me and have sat with me during counseling and confession, the one warning I give to everybody is the same warning that St. Paul gave to Timothy today in the letter that he wrote to him. He warns him of the hardships to come. He warns him of the things that were going to transpire. Yes, right as right now, we do not have the persecution that the Roman army had done to the Christians. But no, don't be surprised when that persecution does come. Because if I have been speaking to some of the people that come into the church, persecution comes from inside your families now. When you choose to take the course of the Orthodox faith as your faith. Remember, it needs to be something personal. And St. Paul, when he's writing to Timothy, he's warning them. He's warning him. It's the hardships that you're going to have to endure. But it's those hardships that make us who we are. Because he was speaking from experience. If you've read any of the letters, like I said in the book of Acts as well, you read that he was shipwrecked 2 or 3 times. He was beaten with rods, he was whipped, he was scourged. All those things happened, and every step of the way, what did he do? Did he whine and go to HR? Nope. He glorified God every step of the way. Glorified God. And he uses examples. He uses 3 examples today in the epistle reading. The first example he uses is that of the soldier, right? When you are enlisted in the army, what is your job as a soldier? That is to please the commanding officer. I too am a soldier. I was sent here. Metropolitan Gregory is my commanding officer. Wherever he sends me, I go. If he wanted to pull me out of here, he could. He could send me somewhere else. Nothing's definite. But nonetheless, I do this to honor my commanding officer. And ultimately, my commanding officer is Jesus Christ himself. But Metropolitan Gregory, when he sends me in here, like I told you last time in the liturgy, the sermon I gave, what did I say that he told me? Are you ready to go to work? And what I do here is go to work. I work diligently. What does St. Paul now tell Timothy? He says, those who are wanting to honor, those who are wanting to make happy, those who are wanting to please the commanding officer, what do? They do not get tied up in civilian pursuits. What are those civilian pursuits for the priesthood? I know I was just talking to some of the men back in the altar, and at one point I told myself that I would always be that person that goes to the movie theater. I loved movies. I went to the movies every single week. Every single Tuesday when something new came out, I was at Best Buy or Target. I was buying a Blu-ray. I had whole shelves full of Blu-rays. And I never thought that that would be out of my life. And now they're in boxes, gathering dust. All those Blu-rays, and I spent all that money, all the things that I had kept all in order. I used to put them in alphabetical order. I was proud of my collection. I'd show them off. And what else? All the things that I've gone through, all the things that I've experienced. I never thought that I would be free from some of the things that I've struggled with, as I've told you, with looking at movies that I shouldn't be watching or porn that I shouldn't be going to. All those struggles that so many people go through. And I always tell everybody, come, confess those things over and over and over again. Because at some point, God will conquer you. God will allow you to conquer those things. You will be free from those things. I used to get very angry. I used to get very frustrated at times. And I would get mad at my wife. I'd get mad at my child. I'd get mad at people in general. I mean, the random fork would land on the ground, and what would happen? My wrath would come down upon that fork like it cared that I was doing. I would swear and yell at that fork for just hitting the ground. Now it hits the ground, I just pick it up and put it back on the counter. I give it to my wife. No, I'm just joking. I put it in to get washed. But that's what St. Paul is telling Timothy. You can't be in two places at once. All the things that everybody comes and do confession for, you must understand at some point you need to get rid of those things out of your life. And at one point, you will. It's taken me years to conquer some of those things and to master some of those things. But lo and behold, those days have come. Now, do I ever stand back and say, I'm done? I'm free of those things? No. Every single day, I am praying against those things. I pray against my anger. I pray against my lust. I pray against my gluttony. That's the one I'm still struggling with. But St. Paul tells Timothy, if you are enlisted in the military, if you are a Christian, if you are proclaiming to be one with Christ, you should not be entangling yourself with the affairs of this world. And the world, I can tell you, is very, very seductive. They have done a poll now that said that most of the newest generation, as I said, Alpha and Beta, this new generations that's coming up, they have no problem with certain things that we should have a problem with, like lying. People have no problem lying. People have no problem getting abortions, as we've seen over and over again. People have no problem with having open marriages. People have no problem with having sex before marriage. That's been for a long time, but now it's even more because people do not care. And they do not care about anything or anyone except number one. But the truth of the matter is that if you do not love other people, you do not love yourself. Because the whole idea behind the commandments is to love your neighbor as yourself. If you do not love other people, the person that you hate the most is yourself. And what else does St. Paul use as an example? What else does he say? He uses the example of the person that's running the race. He says if you are running the race and if you do not play by the rules, what happens? You don't get to win. When you are running the race, you must pace yourself. Everybody that's ever run a race, I don't like running very much, but I have ran in my life. But I don't like it very much because I'm kind of a big guy. But nonetheless, the race that we race in the church, it's more of an Ironman race. It's more of a thing that you have to go over and over and over again. You prepare, you prepare, you prepare. And just like the person in the military, every day you have to run drills. Every day you're supposed to be at your prayer wall praying, praying, praying. And then when you get tired of praying, you know what you need to do? Pray some more. If you need to do whatever you need to do, get down your prayer life. Because that is what the good soldier of Jesus Christ is doing, going to prayer. I guarantee that when St. Paul went to that prison, that was a chance for him to slow down. Because he was able to be in that prison writing letters. I know for myself, there is last night, after I got home from doing confessions, I was standing in front of my prayer wall. When I walked into the room, I was having a hard time putting one foot in front of the other. I was so tired. My wife and I are exhausted. But you know what? That doesn't matter. What matters is that I go to God. What matters is that I go before the Lord. What matters is that I draw close to Him. Because this is the time that we must take in order for us to become the men and the women that we are called to be. And when you're running this race, just like that Ironman race, what is like 20-some miles of pedaling, 20-some miles of swimming, whatever, at a certain point, you try to give up. Your muscles feel like they're going to be exhausted. Your muscles feel like they're not going to be able to move anymore. But then at some point, you draw your second wind. I remember there was a time when I came back from seminary, and my dad had a kidney stone. And I had to go home, and as soon as I got off the plane the next morning, my dad had an appointment in 2 days. My dad and I mowed my dad's a landscaper. We mowed 2 days of jobs in 1 day because he had to be able to go into that surgery. And when I was done, I walked up the stairs and I collapsed onto the stairway. That's how exhausted I was. That's how I feel sometimes now. I go weeks and weeks and weeks. And the only way that I am able to do it, the only way that I am able to endure is through Jesus Christ. Through the strength that the Holy Spirit gives me. Because every single time that phone rings, I pick it up, I text, I answer. When people want to come over, I answer. Because I am enlisted in the army of Jesus Christ. I am one of the commanding soldiers. I am one of the people that is teaching other people how to go out and wage the warfare for us to be able to win the fight. We are in it to win it. I know that sounds like a thing that you would hear at a, right? But we are in it to win it. We are here in order to win the day. The soldier, again, is not tied up with civilian pursuits. They follow orders. All you guys that were in the military, what would happen if you didn't follow an order? What would happen? Tell me. You got written up, and if you didn't follow the order again, what happened? You get kicked out. Right? I mean, I don't understand how we don't understand that in the army of the Christian, we have orders. And if you are not following orders, you know what will happen. The wages of sin is death. And finally, St. Paul, he writes about, to Timothy, he says about the farmer that works tirelessly, the farmer that goes from the morning until the evening, that works and works and works, and the first person to get to glean from any of those things that he works on is the farmer himself. I'm telling you, when you get up in the morning and you start praying, the first person that gets any benefit from it is yourself. You may be praying for every single person in this room, but the benefit's for you. And you go, and you go, and you go. And as you prepare, and as you work, and as you strive, and as you go, and as you work, and as you strive, you start to change your heart. Because the Lord is the only way, as the only one that can actually change the heart. Like King David said, create in me a clean heart, O God. Renew a right spirit within me. Again, God is the only one that can do that for us. Today we celebrate Saint Demetrios. My patron saint, as I said, Saint Demetrios lived around 306 is when he was martyred. And that day, when he's sitting in that town and the emperor comes and asks him, what are you doing? St. Demetrios does not deny his faith. He proclaims his faith. He gets arrested. He gets put into prison. And while he's in prison, you know what he's doing in prison? He's ministering to people that are in prison. And there's people that come up to the gates, and he ministers to them as they're preparing themselves to go out into the arena. And he strengthens them by his presence. He strengthens them because he became a soldier for Jesus Christ. He honored the emperor until the emperor asked him to do things that were contrary to his faith. And then he turned away from the emperor and started serving God with all of his heart when he was in prison. And he gave the blessing. He gave the blessing to all those men to be able to go out. And one night when he was praying, they came into the prison and they ran him through with lances and spears. He didn't even get to fight in the arena. Not in the sense that was in combat, but he fought in a different way, praying for all the people that needed to be prayed for. And then he was put into a tomb, and when he was put into that tomb, he started streaming myrrh, and people started being healed. The combat for us that understand as Christians does not end when we draw our last breath. It continues. Theosis continues. The race continues. We may not be struggling like we did with the demonic entities affecting us, but nonetheless, we keep praying for the people that are here left behind. We must become diligent in our prayers. We must be diligent in our faith, because there is one thing that all that matters for us to do. Again, I'm going to repeat myself. Glorify God. No matter what happens in your life, glorify God. No matter how tired you are, glorify God. I'm telling you, when the people that I've talked to that are in the military, what happens if you hear the trumpet in the morning for you to wake up and you say, I'm tired? What happens? Right? Right? You don't get to sleep in. You don't get to stay in your bed cuddled up until 11 o'clock in the morning. Some people 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever you decide you want to sleep into. And I'm telling you, if you get up in the morning and pray, you can go back to bed, right? But if you're not preparing for the warfare at hand during that day, you're going to fall. How many of you have came and did confession and said, I fell this week hard? I said, did you pray those days? No. Why are you surprised? Why are you surprised? And again, the farmer, if he does not get up early in the morning and start working in his fields, you know what's going to happen? Those fields are going to get eaten up. Those fields are going to get, and a shepherd, you have to, as I told you with my dad, out there 2 or 3 or 4 weeks at a time during lambing season, fighting and fending off bobcats and whatever animals that are coming. We have to be tireless in our lives. We have to be tireless, because in one time, you won't be breathing anymore. It's the fact of the matter. All of us are heading towards that end. And Jesus today, when he went into the Gadarenes, that's what we need to understand. He became a target because he went from place to place to place, preaching the good news, preaching about all the things of the kingdom of heaven for the life to come, that we need to become the soldiers that we are called to be. That's what Jesus did. When as soon as he stepped out of the boat, what did the demons do? They recognized him. And I'm telling you, the holier you become, the more the demons will recognize you. And the more they will come and harass and hurt and bother you. And if they can't get to you, they'll go after your family. That's why we as men that are leading the household, we need to become priests and fathers in our household, so that way we can guide our wives and our children towards the kingdom of heaven. That's why the enemy fights so hard to destroy the nuclear family. That's why he's fighting so hard to get homosexuality to be normalized. That's why he's fighting so hard for transgenderism to get normalized. Because If you are not showing your children the direction of the kingdom of heaven, the enemy will come in and they will take over and he will win. Unless you let God inhabit your heart, the enemy will win. We must serve God with all of our heart, all of our mind, and all of our soul, and we must become the people that we have called to be. Because the Lord, our God, is our commanding officer. Do not be entangled with the civilian pursuits. Find your prayer life. Find your prayer life. Come to the church every single time it is open. And if you are not working, you should be here. Because if you receive the Eucharist, you are now having a lifeline to God. If you are getting a confession and you're hearing those prayers to ask God to forgive you, at some point you will get tired of those sins and you will say, I don't want to do those things any longer. I promise you it'll happen, but you got to be diligent and you can't be tied up with the civilian pursuits. When Jesus walked out and met Legion, he asked him, what is your name? He says, Legion, for a bunch of demons that inhabited this guy. I'm telling you, there's many legions out there right now. We fight against them over and over and over again. And St. Paul again in the book of Ephesians, the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the belt of truth, the gospel of peace upon our feet, shield of faith, quench all the fiery darts of wicked, and the sword of the Spirit, which is our word. He is giving you weapons of warfare. And when Jesus confronted that demoniac, he cast the demons out into the pigs. Why did he do it in the pigs, as a side note? Does anybody know why he cast them into the pigs? Because the pigs were an abomination to the Jews. They were unclean, and they were making money off of it. So Jesus took care of two things at one time. Cast the demons into the pigs, and the pigs went down and drowned. And you know what happens? These people come out and see this guy sitting in his right mind, talking with Jesus. And what's the first thing that they ask Jesus to do? Leave. What do you think our country's doing? We don't want you here, God. Leave. We want to live our lives however we want to live. And Jesus, when that man asked Jesus, I want to go with you, I don't want to stay here, what did Jesus tell him? Nope. You're staying right here, and you're going to give the good news to the people of the people so that you live with. That's what we need to do. We need to be right where we're at, in the jobs that we're at, in the places that we're at, and we need to shine brightly for the people to be able to have an opportunity to see the glory of Jesus Christ in our lives. So let us today, as we celebrate St. Demetrios, let us thank the Lord for enlisting all the people in this room to the kingdom of heaven, to the army. Fight the good fight, run the good race, and get up early in the morning to be able to glean from the harvest that is coming. We ask in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.